lot over these past 3 Tuesdays of the virtual gathering. It's a privilege to be able to join you for a few minutes. Barbara, is everything okay? The sound?
Yep, good.
See me?
You're
okay.
good.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am William Henry with Volunteers Insurance Service Association. We are a membership organization. Some of you are familiar with what we do. We're privileged to provide insurance for a number of the villages. We began our operations in 1972 with the idea that we wanted to provide the protections for volunteers of nonprofit organizations against the most common risks that your volunteers face. We provide 3 types of volunteer insurance, and we also do more than that, which I'll get to in a moment. And I believe that there will be a screen in a few minutes with my contact information. Happy to have a conversation or email correspondence with anyone if you have questions or would like to discuss how we can help your village. We provide accident insurance in case a volunteer is injured. We provide liability insurance in case a volunteer accidentally injures someone else or damages someone's property while they're on their assignment. And also excess automobile liability insurance. If a volunteer causes an accident while they're on assignment and their personal auto limits are insufficient for the damage done, our policy provides up to $500,000 in additional protection. The cost of all those 3, if you chose to purchase all 3, is about the cost of a lunch. So when you go on our website and drill down into the details, you'll see how much each coverage costs. You can get any combination of them that you want. Also, as a membership organization, we have a great emphasis on risk management. So if you are a member of VIS, you have access to close to 100 resources that we've developed over the years based on the actual claims history of our program to help you and your volunteers understand the most common risks that are out there, to develop a system to allow you to address those in a way that's appropriate for you. And just general tips, training materials. We have a series that's very popular called our Preventer Papers. You can give these to your volunteers, or you can have small group training to help them understand some of the injury exposures that are out there, vehicle exposures, and how to stay safe. We also, in cooperation with the National Volunteer Transportation Center, developed the first, and it's still the only, online self-paced volunteer vehicle safety training program. This is, as is implied, just strictly for volunteers. It covers everything from communication with the client who's being transported to safety of the vehicle itself. And much of it is like, if you remember driver's education when you were in high school, it's like a turbocharged refresher course on that. It's absolutely free. The volunteer can take it at their own pace, and that's proven to be extremely popular. Also, if you're a member of VIS, you are entitled to substantial discounts on some of the things that you probably purchase. Volunteer background screening, for example, with Sterling Volunteers, a partner of ours. There are also opportunities to purchase, for example, payroll data processing or assisted rides, which is a web-based vehicle scheduling program. All those provide cost savings opportunities. Some people want to know, well, why volunteer insurance? My insurance agent told me that my volunteers are covered on the policies I already have. The reason is this. If you insure volunteers on the policies that are designed to protect your organization, you're sharing your limits of liability with volunteers. That could result in an underinsured claim if a volunteer causes an accident and both the volunteer and the organization, the village, are sued. You can very inexpensively separate that risk through our program by insuring your volunteers separately. That is an overview of VIS and what we do. You don't even have to purchase the volunteer insurance, by the way, to be a member of VIS. When you go to our website, you can join the organization, not get the insurance, but have all the other benefits for just $25 a year. So you can buy in at a couple of different levels. If you just want the risk management resources and the discounts, $25 a year. If you want the insurance, you get all that plus the insurance. I'm going to stop talking and see if anyone has any questions. And if there aren't any, I'm going to give you back some of your time, as they say in Congress.
Let me look and see if I have any questions here. I don't see anything, but you know what, William, thank you. I just actually had a question from somebody this week about volunteer insurance. So I appreciate it. We direct them always to our website, which, you know, VIS is a network provider. So please email him or email us, and I appreciate your time.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And
We have a
I hope
question.
that I know that it's been
One question.
okay, great.
Do you have, this is a good question, Eddie. Cybersecurity insurance?
Yes, our business administrator, SEMA, and some of you may know the name SEMA more than you would VIS, offers cybersecurity protection. I can give you the information on that. Contact me and I'll put you in touch with the right people who can give
That'd be
you
great.
for that.
That'd be great. Just put it in the chat. That'd be great.
All right. So if there's nothing else, happy virtual gathering, and I hope it's been tremendously successful.
It has. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Anytime. Bye now.
Bye.
All right. So we're back on track, which is good. Joel and Hillary, is Hillary on? Hillary's on. Okay, good. Next, I'd like to introduce two of our outstanding board members, Hillary Lentz Simmons and Joel Shapira, who will talk to us about scaling the village model, growth lessons learned. I want to make sure, Joel, we have all your panelists on.
They'll be joining a little bit later, most likely. So some may join right away, some will be joining in the middle.
Okay, if you don't see them, let us know.
I will. And can we just make sure that Hillary is actually going to be running the slides?
Yep. Go ahead, Hillary. You can take it away.
Excellent. So, want to welcome everybody to the final lap, if you will, the end of the marathon of this wonderful village to village national gathering. And Hillary and I are very excited to present to you today. I just wanted to make sure everybody notes from the beginning, it's marked on the schedule that we're going to go for an hour. We're actually going to go a little bit more than an hour. And then we're going to wrap up with Barbara the last 15 or so minutes. So let's dive in. I wanted to say a little bit about myself, and then Hillary will introduce herself as well. Hillary, you can go to the next slide. So I have been involved with villages for about 9 years. I live in Evanston, Illinois, outside of Chicago, and I've been a I was a board member for my village in Evanston for 6 years, and that overlapped with my time as a national board member for the Village to Village network here the last 6 years, so coming off that time. And I wanted to just spend some time today just kind of setting the tone for where we've been as a national organization. As many of you know, the first village started in the early 2000s in Beacon Hill in Boston. And we had some development of about 50 or so villages in those first 6 to 8 years. And then we realized that we really were developing a lot of momentum and we needed a better way of organizing, and Beacon Hill came together with the capital impact partners and got some funding, and we had the establishment of the Village to Village Network. And that was really designed to help new villages get started, to help the early villages continue to gain momentum. And that's really marked that sort of second era of our village movement. And then in 2014, we had the handing off from capital impact partners to the now working board of the Village to Village Network. And what we saw over the next 6 years was really the growth and development of a lot more villages. It also meant that we had a lot of new people to the village movement. And so part of what we're trying to do now is move together and coalesce as a true movement. And what Hillary and I were talking about as we were discussing where we are now is we really believe that we are entering a fourth era of the village development, and that this is really a byproduct of what's happened in our society. It's a function of what's happened with COVID. It's a function of all the different things that are coming together to propel forward this aging in community initiative, at which the villages are at the center. So go ahead, Hillary, if you can go to the next slide. So I just wanted to sort of capture what we have done traditionally as villages. We all know that there are that standard phrase, if you've seen one village, you've seen one village. But in general, we have a core competency across a number of villages. We typically have started with this idea of being one place to call to get questions and answers and information related to aging in our homes. Some villages have chosen or developed a series of services that they can offer. We have a host of programming that is available. We excel at delivering great content geared for older adults. And then we've seen some villages develop around this core competency of managing volunteers, and some villages have grown to have paid staff. Some villages we know are all volunteer, low or no dues. And we have diversity across the village network right now. The main thrust traditionally has been, how do we support those people in between, those people that might fall between the gaps? And the focus typically has been the middle income older adults, with this main mission of how do we support living longer, better at home. Hillary? So I wanted to just use this visual as a framework, because villages traditionally have been about supporting individuals while trying to build communities. And this is something we have done very, very well, but we need to do more. We have an opportunity to develop into the facilitator of aging in community across the country. And I think some of what we've done across over the last number of years has been about supporting individuals who want and need to age in place, but we have an opportunity to reach a lot more people in those communities. And we've heard about it already over the last 3 weeks. We've heard about age-friendly initiatives. We've heard about different kinds of community engagement, different ways of supporting social isolation. We've heard about different ways to connect with other organizations in our communities. And the villages have been really that connector for building out the management of services and content for those people in their homes. But I really believe we've only scratched the surface. Hillary? So we often talk about this concept of a village movement, and I believe we are still in the early stages of defining what that movement could be. And we've talked about, as a board, I've talked with a number of villages over the years, what would it take to really develop this into a social movement? Recently, I reached out to Leslie Crutchfield, and Leslie is one of the main drivers behind and thought leaders around social movements. And she put out a new book recently, and I wanted to just sort of touch on a few things. I'm not going to go into it, but I've reached out to Leslie in a way that I'm hoping she can, and she has interest in helping us really take this village movement to the next level. And she highlights in her book a couple key areas, and I've just listed them here on this slide. I've included a link to her website where you can learn a little bit more. But what we're really trying to promote right now is how can we take what we've done at an individual community level and raise it and elevate it to a national or international movement of social change. And I believe that COVID is in many ways the stimulator of something that will allow us to take things to really the next level. So if you've come across Leslie in the past or you haven't heard of her, I strongly urge you, because part of what we're going to talk about in the rest of this session is what would it take for this network of individual villages to mobilize together across the nation. We already see wonderful collaboration occurring in California with Village Movement California. We have wonderful collaboration occurring in the greater DC area with WAVE. We have collaborations occurring in Chicago and Boston and Albany. We heard about Albany a couple of weeks ago. So there is already regional collaboration that is occurring, and we need to keep amplifying that. We need to keep operating and thinking about what we can do at a national level so that we can help one another and raise all ships. Hillary? So part of what Hillary and I have talked about and the main thrust of this closing session is really a focus on reimagining what the villages could be nationally. And I've hit on a couple of the topics. Hillary's going to speak in a moment about what she has done and what her team and her stakeholders have done to take a little help in Colorado to another level. And there's some key components of this, but part of reimagining what the villages can and should be is going to be through collaboration and collective action. It's going to mean we're going to have to address the issue of creating more thriving villages and helping them ramp up much faster than we do today. We've seen a number of villages that are between 5 and 10 years, and they are still growing, but some of them have plateaued. We've seen it in certain communities, and they need to be invigorated. We need a way to get many more villages started and to a more thriving capacity in less than a couple of years. So part of doing that is creating new means of sustainability. We need new revenue engines. We need new opportunities to find funding and other means that can help villages get started in places where there haven't been villages over the last 10 to 15 years. Part of our ways to do that is we need to reach beyond just the members of our villages. We need to reach beyond just that middle income level. And certainly we have lots of examples of villages today that have become more inclusive and opened themselves up to a lot more opportunities, reaching other parts of the community and other types of people. And we need to amplify that as well. So one of the things we're going to talk about is what can you do to reach people of different socioeconomic backgrounds, different races, different ethnicities, and perhaps most importantly, how can we bring a multi-generational component across all our villages? How can we bridge across the generations and bring many more people into this village movement? And one of the things that I'll come back and talk about is how do we develop even more strategic relationships with different types of organizations at a national, at a regional, and a local level. Hillary? So I kind of highlighted on some of those things already with these with these previous slides. And I think really the best thing we can do is in this slide is, let me just talk about some partnerships and I'll come back to it, but we need new ways to reach technology companies, healthcare providers, financial services, transportation, housing, social engagement, and nonprofits. And the village can truly be the hub and connect the dots across these different communities. And we can work across these different organizations, and we can work in partnership in a way that can help in the sustainability of the village entity itself at a local level, at a regional level, and a national level. With the key piece being working off of what villages already do at a grassroots level, helping with the connect and contribute across for older adults. So with that, Hillary, let's go to the next slide. It's my pleasure. I've really had a chance to get to know Hillary on a whole new level over this process. She has been part of A Little Help in Colorado for over 9 years, and she has been witness and influencer to its evolution over that period of time. So it is my true pleasure to hand it over to Hillary and let her tell you about her experience and what a great lesson we can draw from A Little Help. Hillary?
Thank you, Joel, and thanks for sticking with us today. I know we're kind of the last anchor here, and we're happy to be sharing this information with you. So there's a lot of different things I could share with you about A Little Help, but I'm going to frame this in terms of how we've been able to grow, and that's been an evolutionary process. As you can see by this timeline here, we were one of the villages that our founders read about, Beacon Hill Village, when it was in all the newspapers, and several national stories were written about this new model in Beacon Hill, and our founders, who are now in their mid to late 90s, had read about it in the paper and said, we need this in our area. It took them a few years of coffees in their living rooms and in community to get their 501c3 status, get a board of directors, and get going. We hired our first full-time executive director in 2011, and that was a conscious decision by our board to say, hey, we're helping people, and we have a model that we think can help even more people, and we want to be that impact in the community. So it was a conscious choice by our board, with buy-in and a resolution from the board to bring on that first full-time executive director. And before then, we were pretty volunteer run. We had some part-time executive director help, but just weren't able to make the splash that we knew that we could. So with our first full-time executive director, Dr. Paul Ramsey, came on board at the end of 2011, and then we were able in 2012 to start really professionalizing our operations with systems and professional staff. I was the second person brought on board as a part-time administrative assistant in early 2012, so many moons ago, to really help get this going. We started growing throughout Denver. We are a Colorado-based nonprofit, and realized that we were getting calls from other areas, and we had a model that we thought we could help share with other communities. So we started to replicate, and replication rather than scaling is creating new villages, but not necessarily getting those economies of scale yet. So we were creating new villages in new areas under our Little Help umbrella, but we were still learning how to do that well, and learning how to scale that so that we could be more thoughtful in our growth and more strategic to get to the next level. So in 2018 and beyond, we've been able to really refine that model, grow our impact tremendously in the number of older adults we've been helping, and to strategize how we're going to continue growing to meet our goal of being a statewide organization. And how we define that is not necessarily reaching every single older adult within the state, but covering an area where we're reaching over 50% of the population of Colorado. So we're growing that way. And I'm going to share with you just a little bit about what those kind of generations of our evolution have looked like. So many of you have been in similar stages, and I hope this resonates, and maybe you say, oh, I feel we're in generation 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4. So you know, Gen 1 is really launching, getting going, setting your board of directors, your bylaws, getting your 501c3, starting to get some branding materials together, making sure you have insurance like VIS. And a lot of that work and the shoulder of that burden is happening at a high level volunteer level. So folks who are really committed to making this village work and to serving older adults within their community and hopefully themselves as it grows. But it's really, the work is being done by volunteers, and it's a heavy lift to get going. With the help of Village to Village Network, there are a lot of resources and opportunities for mentorship, but it's a significant investment in time. So at this time, you're also onboarding volunteers and members and beginning to provide programming and services. And usually initial funding is from founding stakeholders like those high-level volunteers and board members, and some from member dues. So that's, I put some metrics up here just to kind of situate what it might look like to be at a launching phase. A little help was fortunate, I think, in our launching, that our member dues started out very low. So we were able to work with that because we've kept our dues low, and we actually now have a pay what you can model for membership. So our older adults tell us what they're able to afford, and you know, that can look like $25 for the year, or that can look like $1,000 for the year. And we're able to really share the care there and provide a lot of services and be more open and inclusive and welcoming to lower income members by having a model like that. So the second generation I see, and kind of the way we evolved, I've seen in other villages, is that professionalization phase. So starting to use technology to help coordinate services. That was a big step for us to move from the phone tree on a paper to coordinating and tracking all of our volunteer services, all of our members, all of our donors in one place. We did make the decision to hire professional staff. We knew we wanted to grow, and not for the sake of growth, but for the sake of impact. We are doing a beautiful thing, all of us, and I think we should share it with as many people as we can because it's so needed, and we're filling a really important gap. And we'll talk more about that, but hiring professional staff, I think, is key to that piece of getting to the next level, because there's only so much the high-level volunteers who got things started can do. It's a lot to run a village and get to the next level. We became very intentionally intergenerational, which has served us well, especially during COVID, because a lot of our younger older adults who were our primary kind of rock star volunteers were uncomfortable going to the grocery store and providing services as we streamlined our services for the community response to COVID. But because we've been intentionally intergenerational for many years, we've kind of backfilled that volunteer pool of younger folks. So our younger, older volunteering members were able to receive help and not go into the grocery store and be in a place of higher risk, while our younger volunteers were comfortable taking that risk to get our younger, older, and our older members groceries to their doorstep, prescriptions, running essential errands, all the great things that our villages have been doing to support folks during this time. So filling in volunteers is helpful from a capacity standpoint to have extra volunteers at the ready. But I also think it's really important for the reciprocity of our membership. Our older adults have so much to give back as well, and to have those younger generations there to receive that reciprocal wisdom and mentorship is a beautiful thing. And it kind of changes the dynamic of asking for help, because it really is a two-way street, and we blur those lines between who's helping whom. And in this second phase, second generation, you can be applying for grants, and you're starting to attract individuals who might not have been around from the beginning, but really the mission resonates with them. So again, growing impact, growing number of members and volunteers served. And with that, your budget is also growing, have the capacity to do so. So generations 3 and 4 is kind of getting to the next level here. So being able to replicate by identifying, evaluating, and pursuing growth opportunities, which means, finding new geographies to serve, adjacent geographies to serve. Maybe the next community over has seen what you guys are doing and really wants that same opportunity, and there's a need. So just being able to expand your geographic footprint can really expand your impact. But that also means growing that organizational and operational capacity on the back end. So, you're growing new staff or new high-level volunteers in a new area, but you also need to make sure you've got the folks at home base or, hub, if you're a hub and spoke, to support all the incoming phone calls and requests for service that are likely to follow as you grow. And this is where you're also really intentionally partnering with service groups, again, for that intergenerational piece in schools, businesses. We've found that our employee volunteerism has been a great way to involve corporate donors and corporate partners into our mission, because it's really a team building experience. It's a tangible experience when we go help an older adult with yard chores at their home. You get the before and after and feel like you've really done something. And is a great way to engage a lot of different community groups, whether they be faith-based or scout troops or you name it. We have a lot of different partnership opportunities in any community that we all serve in. And then when you are growing that impact, you're able to go to some of those larger grant makers, and your fundraising events start to have a larger impact as well, because you're bringing in volunteers and groups that you've worked with in the past, and are able to keep those funding efforts going. Generation 4 is where a little help is right now. So we are geographically filling in our gaps, growing adjacently into communities that are nearby. We have 3 locations throughout the state of Colorado, in the Metro Denver area, in northern Colorado, and in the Roaring Fork Valley. So we know there are plenty of communities right around and within those areas that we're not fully serving yet. So we're growing adjacently with the great team that we already have. And then starting to seed plant in those new areas. It doesn't happen overnight when you're growing into a new area, but you're really tilling the seeds and starting partnership conversations as you're looking into a new area. As far as capacity, we're also making sure we have the skill sets that we need. At first we were making sure we had all of our geographies covered with coordinators or directors there. But now we're at the stage where, we're looking at what gaps we still have in skill sets among our team, which is now 9 staff, mix of full and part-time there. But making sure we have the right people at the table. Service-wise, we want to see what else we can do. We get, and I'm sure you guys do too, lots of requests for things that we don't do. And we want to make sure we are setting expectations and have necessary boundaries. But, some things we go, maybe we could provide something like that. There's a need here. And if it's not something that's able for a volunteer to provide and is reasonable to ask of a community volunteer, then we're also filling in those service referral partnerships. So making sure that we know the other nonprofits operating in the space and what they do and don't do, so we can make warm referrals to them and not just send our older adults on a wild goose chase to find resources. We really want to make sure we're holistically meeting needs. And if that's not always our volunteers, we're finding the right path for folks to go down. So when you're at a level of impact that's gotten larger, you're able to, you're standing on a better leg to create strategic partnerships, get funding from Older Americans Act dollars, which I'll talk a bit more about. And we've actually launched or created our endowment fund this year to provide a little help for generations beyond those that we're serving now. So We're excited to be at this point of impact, but there's still a lot more that we can do, and a lot more that we're learning. So that's just a bit about kind of where we've been. And now in 2020, in the next 3 years, our strategic plan is to cover over half of the state of Colorado in terms of population in the areas that we serve. Right now, we have over 1,000 members that we are serving in our 3 locations. We have over 2,000 background checked trained volunteers who have all gotten COVID protocols and have gone through training. Our budget this year will be around $700,000, and that's typically a balanced budget, as I'm sure those who are budgeting in the nonprofit world know. You got to get to zero, but this year I think will be better than zero, actually. And then building those diverse and sustainable funding streams, which Joel and I will both touch on more, but is so key to being able to do the work we're doing. We're not growing for growth's sake, and we're not funding for funding's sake. It's to help more people. Establishing strategic partnerships with our area agencies on aging has been a vital piece of our growth in each location. So in every county we serve, we are getting reimbursed for some of the services that we provide, which has been an incredible new revenue stream that is fairly sustainable, and we're very happy to have procured. And in the future, as we continue our growth path, I think there are a lot of different partnerships that we can be exploring in the tech realm, in the healthcare realm, and some of the other industries that Joel has mentioned and that we'll hear from soon, actually, to really get to the next level, to find some more maybe sustainable recurring revenue streams, and to offer more help to our older adults. I loved hearing about Vitality Society. I think there's a lot of great opportunity right there, right off the bat. So this just gives you a little idea of our growth. Our annual budget over here has grown as we have, and again, I put it as our revenue, but it's also our expense, because we, try to hold a balanced budget. And then over here shows a map of Colorado and how we've grown and where we're growing. So the yellow is Denver, and that's where we started. And we started in 4 neighborhoods when we got our first full-time executive director. Within the next few years, we grew within Jefferson County and Orange over here. And then our next growth really focused on the, I guess they called it Seafoam Green. This was a funny map, but into expanding into new areas and connecting the I-25 corridor up to Larimer County and our Northern Colorado branch. And the blue shows where we hope to continue to grow into El Paso County and further on the western slope. So just to give you a sense of kind of that geographic footprint. So one thing Joel and I really worked on was trying to distill some of these concepts into how we can help show other villages the way. So some of our lessons learned and a roadmap to being able to replicate what you've done in your village and eventually to scale it. I cannot stress enough the importance of organizational capacity. If you're interested in growing, I think paid staff is key. Again, it's a heavy lift to put on a fully volunteer-run organization to start and then grow. And making sure you've got good people at the table and that you have the support staff behind the location staff. So, while you're growing, you want those boots on the ground. And, our model, we bring our suite of services, but we also respond to the local needs. I think it's really important to be malleable and not just kind of drop a one-size-fits-all model into every place we've grown. So having that local staff, but also having the administrative folks who are handling the call volume and all the backend system and tracking, and really getting to the point where you have a diverse and sustainable funding stream is key. It's very hard to do all this work when you're when you don't have the funding behind it and you're scrambling for it, as I think we all often have been. As you're going to a new location, we have found that it's a balance of opportunity and strategy. So, we want to be asked to come into an area, but we also want to make sure it's an area that strategically makes sense for us to be in. So looking at the demographics and, are there older adults in this area? Is this an area where the population's growing? And are there younger folks to be volunteers? Is there funding available? Are there local grant makers? Are there individuals in the area willing to help seed the project? And can you get in with the county or the Older Americans Act region for funding? And what kind of partnerships are you able to build there? Service partnerships for referrals and holistic care, as well as business and corporate partnerships. So those are some of the things we look for as we evaluate new locations. When you're launching services, you want to make sure you've got your local marketing ready and partnerships to help get the word out. And we found a lot of success in launching with a sampler service day. So a big thing we do is service Saturdays, where we get hundreds of volunteers together for coffee and donuts and a rah-rah speech and telling folks not to use chainsaws and to make sure they engage with the person whose home they're at. And then we send them off in the spring and the fall to do yard tours. So they're washing windows, cutting down vines, raking leaves, weeding gardens, cleaning first floor gutters. It's a big day. And this year we're doing little kindness days in pods with a virtual rah-rah. So we can be safe. But launching with that sampler day has been really helpful because I'm sure many of you have known the reticence of people to join and to spend money and sign on. But if you give them a free yard cleanup day right off the bat, it helps people come on board. And make sure you're tracking all of this. It's being able to show your impact in the number of members and the number of volunteers you're engaging, the number of services you're providing, is a really compelling story to donors, to grant makers, and to government funding. And make sure you're involving the entire community. It's been a lot easier for some of our members to ask for help when it is an intergenerational community and they can share their stories and wisdom as well. And as you're growing, if you have kind of a hub office or an operations office, as we call it, make sure you're getting really great relationships in place with your location folks. Make sure you're both reporting to each other. So it isn't just the location reporting to the office, it's the office reporting back and sharing budgets and things like that, and making sure those bigger decisions are inclusive. So including locations in strategic planning and budgeting, bringing them on as board members for the entire organization, and communicating the value and importance of the existing systems and partners and branding that you're bringing. I don't know how I'm doing on time. I'm sorry, I can talk all day about all this, but one thing I want you guys to think about is what generation do you feel like your organization is in? Did any of those generations resonate with you? And if you are willing to move forward, as we hope you are, what steps can you start taking to move the ball forward? Joel and I talk a lot about this, but I think villages are a really important solution to the aging concerns in our country. We are doing a great thing. We are connecting people in community and allowing them to age safely and comfortably in their own homes in a connected way. And if we are professionalizing our villages as a national movement, we can have a much more intentional impact and really think about what the future can look like and how many people we can impact as a whole. I think sharing lessons learned and best practices can help us empower more older adults to age well and engage more neighbors. And we have these tools and we have lessons learned. And I'm happy to share all of our faults as well as our successes, and also happy to learn. So if you're earlier on in the process and any of this has resonated with you, I hope you won't get stuck and that you'll commit to growing with us. I think there's just tremendous value that we can leverage together. And with that, I'm going to kick it back to Joel so we can think big.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Hillary. That was terrific. And it's really been my personal passion and pleasure over the last 8-9 years to meet and engage with so many people in various communities who believe in the power of villages. And the thing that that always grates at me is that we should be impacting so many more people. Who among us has not had the conversation and explained what a village does and have that person say, why don't we have so many more of those? Why haven't I heard of this before? So what Hillary and I talked about when we were planning for this session is how can we take this wonderful celebration that is this virtual gathering where we're sharing ideas and talking about things that are happening, and how do we take this forward? And so an exercise that I just wanted to kind of kick off today, we're not going to spend time on it so much, but imagining if we were starting the village movement today in 2020, in the middle of COVID, what would we do differently? How would we partner? Who would we connect with? Who would we be able to mobilize in our community? And I think this is often an exercise that comes out of innovative thinking, because it gets you into a new way of thinking about what's possible. So what I see over the last 20 years is we have 200 to 300 villages. Why don't we have 2,000? Why don't we have 20,000? The running joke I have with people is when they ask me about how many villages, I say, I want as many villages as we have Starbucks across the world, because that's the need, that's the opportunity. And if we were starting today with that kind of number in mind, we might do some things differently. And so what I'm hoping to do collectively with those of you who want to be part of it, as we'll talk about, is how do we come together and mobilize and protect what is the essence of the village movement, that grassroots, that hyper-local, that volunteer-driven component of what makes villages so critical and so valuable, and then how do we take it to a different scale? And how can we do that in a way that doesn't just benefit individual members, but actually makes a lasting difference on the development of our communities? We need some moonshots. We need some ideas about how we can look forward and reach not just in the thousands, but how do we reach 1 million people? How do we reach 10 million people? How do we redefine what the impact of villages can be on individuals and their communities? And I believe in this question of what else might be possible if we were all to work together. Hillary? If you can change the slide. So here's what we've come up with. And we've really thought through this in a way of how can we take what we're doing and take it into 2021 and beyond. And it's really about creating this collective action. One of the things that I see, and I have seen in various conversations and heard over the conversations, is how do we get the money to grow, to hire people, to connect with it? We need to come up with new ways to create what I call a revenue engine. Today, most of our villages are dependent on membership dues in some cases, or fundraising or grants. And that's only going to get harder to generate as we go forward. We need a new engine of growth that will help us create new fuel for our engine. And one of the ways that I believe we can do that is by promoting the village movement into being the voice of aging in community. There's too many examples where villages don't have a seat at the table today. We must find a way to make sure we're there, that our voices are heard, and we can only do that as a collective. And in so doing, we will create villages that are sought after partners in their communities, in their regions, in their states. We're seeing examples of that already. And I put this question out here of how do we create a movement of a little helps? Not that every village needs to operate and look like a little help. That's not what we need. We could have more of them. I wish we had 100 or 200 of them, but we need each village to be what it can be and impacting their community in the best way possible. And that's going to look a little bit different in a lot of different communities. Hilary? So here's what we're proposing. We didn't want it to end here. We wanted action to happen after the national gathering. And so what Hilary and I and other members of the board are talking about is how do we create a reimagination cohort, essentially an innovation initiative that will last, that will start in 2021 and carry on. And the main piece of that will be about experimenting with new ways of operating, new ways of doing business, new ways of organizing, new ways of leveraging technology. How do we elevate what we're doing now to the next level and the level beyond? So here's what we're doing. We're just putting this out as an invitation to those of you who are still listening, who are still participating in this national gathering, and those of you who listen afterwards. We invite you to come forward as individuals, as board members on your village, as executive directors, as other just interested parties. If you're really interested in being part of developing this movement, we have an opportunity for you. And what we're thinking is kicking off a conversation that is meant to be more interactive. This is obviously very one way, given the nature of how we're doing the gathering, but we'd like to invite you to a follow-up conversation in November. We'd like to convene a group of people representing a host of villages across the country with the idea that we co-create an action step forward that kicks off sometime in early 2021. I'm calling it February at this point, just to be realistic. Hilary? So here's what we can potentially do together. We can reimagine what villages are. We can reimagine what villages could be in their community. And the best way that we can do that is to work together. The next phase of this session is I'm going to introduce you to some potential partners that we've identified who want to be in the boat with us. This is very important as we go forward. Hilary talked about what she's done with a little help to connect with area agencies on aging and other different groups in her community. We see lots of examples of doing that in individual communities, but they're isolated. They're not collaborative across different regions, or at least not enough. So what I'm going to ask you for today, send a note to Barbara, send a note to me. Our emails are here. If you're interested in what you're talking about, what we're talking about, just put your name forward. We promise the water's warm. Just jump in with us and we'll figure it out as we go. So look for next steps on that, and I'll come back to that as we close. For this next phase, I decided to make things as complicated as possible, and I've actually invited some representatives of some for-profit organizations who are thinking about and offering solutions that align beautifully with what the villages are doing. The caveat here, I want to be very clear with everyone. There is no national partnerships being put in place right now. There are no specific discounts involved at this point. What we're talking about is just trying to find those organizations that want to help us grow and sustain villages at a different scale. So I've invited a handful to actually introduce themselves today. This is not meant to be an explanation of everything they do. It's merely meant to be a teaser so that you get to know some of these people like I have, and so that you'll be as excited to re-engage with them as we go forward. So with that, Barbara, is there a way to
Yeah, I have actually, I have Randy, Shannon, and Paul are all on the panel, so you can
Great.
talk to them. I yet to have Scott come on.
Scott's
so-
going to come in last, and Matt's not going to be able to join us as it
Okay,
turns
so
out.
Scott's not
So
here
we'll
yet,
Probably just
so-
go through the first four. So we'll kick off with Shannon. Shannon and Pulse and Randy's slides are all integrated. So Hillary, you've got the, you'll take the direction.
Super. Can everybody hear me? I believe I've joined. This is Shannon Kenny.
Yep, you're good.
Yep, you're on.
Super, super. Well, hello, everyone. I am honored to be included in this event to learn more about the work of Village to Village in an area that I'm passionate about. As we'll learn briefly today, we have a little bit of an unusual story. I'm CEO and founder of Prontopia. We are a California technology startup. However, we have operations in Europe where we launched last year in the space of city resilience. And as Joel mentioned, learning how to offer a little bit of help exactly when and where needed. The circumstances of the outbreak of COVID and some other emergency and community needs efforts that we found ourselves at the forefront have really defined this company, and we're delighted to be bringing those lessons home here as we expand globally in this unusual way. By way of the history of Prontopia, we are on a mission above all to bring humanity back as the focal point for developing the technology the world needs today. While operating my previous company, I increasingly became aware that the technology sector was automating tasks and functions in areas of city services that in reality would be better served by improved access to help from a real person. We, even before COVID, saw that orientation of technology development was deepening the digital divide and especially affecting issues that concern us in this conversation today related to how to streamline needed services for older adults in our communities. And so at Prontopia, we set out to create a way to provide flexible, affordable help for those who need it the most in the local communities that need it the most. Our starting point was to utilize the most essential and powerful tool humanity has, the stories of us. We started by listening with open hearts and minds, leaving our assumptions and biases aside. We heard stories from among voices in communities and cities that are less heard, that as we are seeing today, are essential to city and community well-being. We launched our service in the travel sector in Europe last year. Many of our travelers, incidentally, were 55 and older because of the nature of what we do, help getting around easily when cars aren't available. You really need a helping hand, or when troubleshooting is especially dire, help at the pharmacy and so forth. In the course of launching the company, at the same time back in the US, my parents fell ill and I had caregiving responsibilities, and I began to see the scope of the problem and that what we were doing for travelers would also be helpful for older adults in our communities. In fact, in Europe, we had those requests as such. Fast forward to COVID, and all of these concerns were practically wartime for us. These lessons are illustrated here in the community stakeholders needs chart that you're seeing. We were progressively building out the development of our business model in a very grassroots, ground up way. That meant that we feel city resilience is achieved by really understanding the intersections of the needs of all members of the community, local businesses, families of local residents, local assistants, local residents, city governments, and nonprofits, and our city well-being partners. When we openly address our interdependencies, and I feel there's a very powerful opportunity with raising awareness and integrating greater access to support for older adults in our communities, when we view the stakeholders as a whole. And it was exciting to hear you and Joel and Hillary speak of this as where some of the next level opportunities are for Village to Village. Needless to say, COVID in Italy launched us officially into helping the older adults in our European cities. We brought that home in California. We took those lessons to our community stakeholders, and we gained an understanding of how to continue to build technology to solve these problems faster for better city well-being for all of us. We advance to slide 2, thank you. In this listening process, under such times, where can we find joy? How can we seek solutions? And again, through the stories, we listened. Here in California, we heard from Mary, a 90-year-old woman who lives happily in the studio she built at home for her mother. She raised 3 boys, one with special needs, who moved to a facility about 10 years ago. She loves her home and she wants some peace and quiet, and she wants just a little bit of help. And in doing that, she also wants channels to give back to her community. She wants that city resilience, that interdependency, not to just be the recipient of a service. On the other side of that, we heard from one of our local assistants, Samantha, and as a 20-year-old, loving to hear about the intergenerationality because there's power in that. Many of her hopes and dreams right now for work and school are uncertain, but finding meaningful work seemed impossible. Working to earn needed income while supporting the older adults in her community and getting to know their stories is bringing joy to her day, and also important income, as so much opportunity has declined for our youth. We also heard stories from the cities, from nonprofits and government administrations who are struggling to effectively distribute public resources when manpower and budgets are pushed to their limits. And also from local businesses sidelined by the digital divide. And then on the other side, passion among our local assistants and among the older adults we're serving to support those local businesses. So how can we bring all of this together? Slide 3, please. These stories of us led to the creation of adaptable solutions on behalf of the Prontopia team that combine high tech with people power to enable local grassroots organizations and businesses to recruit and retain a helpful, trustworthy talent pool of local assistants with supportive technology to dispatch assistance exactly when and where it is needed, and the data analysis and financial modeling to sustain such programs financially. Slide 4, please. By advancing our partners' capacity to provide access to needed support, we can grow with you. We can then move on to phase 2 activities to expand awareness of the need for such services and advocate for greater dedication of resources to community caregiving networks, along the lines of some of the additional revenue streams that Hillary referred to in the scaling process. Paradigm shifts in patterns of work and care have been among the biggest drivers of social change in our modern history. These shifts ultimately centered on evolving notions of human rights relative to gender, race, and age. We are at another pivotal time in our history when it is imperative to advance these notions to the next level for the benefit of us all. I am grateful for this opportunity to collaborate with a network of organizations such as Village to Village. You are on the vanguard of this already, and I look forward to hearing all of your stories. Thank you for including me today.
Thanks, Shannon. One of the things that I always look for in collaborators is people that have great heart. And one of the things that I think makes the Village Network so wonderful is all the heart that goes into what we've all created. And we need partners with people that are looking to leverage technology and humanity. And that's one of the things I've come to really appreciate in my conversations with Shannon. She gets it and she understands how do we bring those things together. So I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you, Shannon. Thank you so much for participating today. I know there's going to be a lot of groups that are going to be interested in talking with you about how we can power things with Prontopia. So
thank you, Joel. It's a pleasure.
So now we're going to go over to Paul Murillo. Paul represents an organization called Get Setup, which is focused on an online tech platform for learning and engagement. I'll let him describe from here. But Paul, thanks so much for you joining as well today.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody's time. Thanks for allowing us to come and just give a quick talk on Get Setup. Get Setup is a live learning platform, and it's built exclusively for older adults. Well, what does that mean? It means, well, you got to be 50 years old or older to take classes at Get Setup. But it also means that all of our instructors at Get Setup are 50 plus. And all of those instructors are in fact retired educators who actually know how to teach. But more importantly, they understand the cadence that's needed in how older adults learn, and they know how to engage them. So really kind of that's the secret sauce of Get Setup. It's 100% live and it's senior to senior. We understand how to teach the older generations because all of our teachers are from the older generation. So right now we're partnering with many organizations that support the older adult community, and we want them to lead happier and healthier lives. And we're currently partnering with folks just like AARP, YMCA, and area agencies, just to name a few. Joel, let's go to slide 2. So when we got started with Get Setup, our mission was basically to reskill older adults. We were teaching them things they needed to learn to get back in the workforce. We were teaching basic classes to more advanced classes, like how to build a website using Shopify, G Suite, PowerPoint, and other business tools. And unfortunately, in March, COVID hit, and we were challenged by a couple of our partners to create what they called a rapid response e-learning and socialization platform to really help engage older adults who were sheltering in place. So we slightly altered our platform to meet the needs of our partner. So that's where we are today. Slide 3. As we all know, COVID-19 has really drastically changed the world that we live in. People can't go to church or temple. They can't enjoy those big family gatherings, and they can't meet with their friends at a local restaurant. We also know that this has led to a higher instance of social isolation and loneliness. Let's go to slide 4. So how does Get Set Up do that? Well, first, we do it by creating a comfortable place where older adults can come, take classes on topics that will immediately make a positive impact on their life. So what are those topics? Communication, health, fitness, mental health, and understanding Medicare, which right now is a pretty popular class that Gets Set Up. The aim of these topics really is to help reduce loneliness and help older adults live happy, healthier lives. So what sort of classes can you expect to see at Get Set Up? Well, we teach things such as Zoom, software that helps you, we're on Zoom, software that helps you keep in touch with friends and family. Social classes such as Facebook and Instagram, learn how to sign up, set it up, and keep in touch with your extended network. Healthy cooking. We have classes on how to make a healthy meal on a budget, how to make a healthy meal in 30 minutes or less. We have classes on Medicare and mental health, such as meditation and stress management. I can't really stress enough that our goal is to improve the lives of older adults in less than an hour. We're successful in less than an hour if we could teach somebody how to set up a Zoom account so that they can call their loved ones and actually see their faces and engage with them. Next slide, Joel. So by partnering with Get Set Up, you can provide your community with a co-branded e-learning channel that's customized with classes that will specifically benefit your community. Meaning, if you partner with Get Set Up, we can create a learning channel for you. You can choose the classes, you can rotate the classes, you can add your logo and your company information. Once deployed, we will then give you a login to our backend database, and that will give you valuable indicators of engagement, telling you who's logged in, which classes they've signed up for, and which classes they've taken. We can also export that data out if you're using a CRM to manage your community. So if the Village community is looking for a tool that can really help enrich older adults and they're dealing with social isolation, well, maybe it's time to talk to Get Set Up. We'd love to chat with you. Go to the next slide. Now, I'm not sure if a lot of you are news hounds, but there was recently a press release that just actually came out this morning that the state of Michigan has actually hired Get Set Up to provide these services to reduce social isolation and loneliness for every Michigan older adult. And this program will be rolling out later this week. And I actually had a little 1-minute video, if Joel wants to see it on the next slide, that kind of shows the, oh, that's not it.
I actually can't bring it up.
Oh, that's okay.
We set up. So I'll share it. We'll share it out after the event, Paul.
You bet.
Make sure people can view that.
Excellent.
So great. Thank you so much. I think one of the things that, as I've gotten to know Paul and Lawrence, the co-founder of Get Set Up, is that they are establishing some wonderful partnerships with organizations across the country. And by working with those types of companies, we get to partner with their partners. And so I'm very excited to get to find ways to work with Get Set Up. We've certainly seen, all of us have seen the shift to online activities over the last 8-9 months. So when opportunity and circumstances come together And we're going to need to find different ways to continue that in this next generation of or post-COVID world. So thanks again for joining in, Paul.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Randy Klein. Randy is with a company called Vesta Healthcare. For as long as I've been involved in villages, we've talked about how can villages better connect with the healthcare system, which, as we know, is a very complex and challenging opportunity for us to speak that language. Well, one of the things we see potentially in working with Vesta is the opportunity to provide, to find better data and insights that help connect caregivers to the care team. So I'm going to let Randy tell you a little bit more about what his organization is doing and how it might fit into the current operations of how villages are connected to healthcare organizations in their communities. Randy?
Hello. Am I displaying? I am.
You are.
Hi, Joel. Thank you for that warm introduction. So at Vesta Healthcare, we see caregivers as the unsung heroes of the delivery system. Caregivers, and I'm sure that no one here needs to be convinced of this, are the ones that are the closest, most knowledgeable, and most important day-to-day individuals for people with needs. And when you start talking about folks who are receiving long-term supports and services in the community, their caregiver, which can include both paid aides and family, and in many cases has both involved, are the people that handle everything from medications to dealing with urgent issues to all the things that it takes for somebody to be able to age successfully in place. When we look at that from the perspective of a caregiver today, this is what it looks like. It looks like spaghetti, where the caregiver is invisible. The caregiver is having to navigate this on their own. They don't really have an identity with a health plan, with a doctor, with providers. So it's very, very challenging. If we could advance the slide. What our system does is it allows us to give that caregiver an identity and connect them into the rest of the delivery system. We are both a tech company and a specialized provider. So what this means is that we have a software system that allows us to link up caregivers, care recipients, and providers. And when I say providers, I mean providers of all types. This includes PCP, so primary care physicians, specialists, hospitals. It also includes the type of things that you would consider, social and environmental supports, hyper local type activities around, nutrition, transportation, heavy duty house cleaning. Also very important things for somebody to be able to age in place. The other part of it is, as a provider, we are able to do this as a covered benefit. And what that means is that the last speaker talked about understanding Medicare. One of the things to understand about Medicare is that our service offering is covered by Medicare. So as a result, we are able to make it available to people who have, needs at virtually, no cost beyond cost sharing, which is often covered because many people have supplemental coverage as well. Moving on. The results of what we're doing, we've been around at this point for about almost 2 years, about a year and a half. We're now live in several states, and we actually are in the process of, is somebody having trouble hearing me? I see a Slack here. Okay, so hopefully everyone can hear me.
We
in the
can hear
chat.
you.
All right.
Okay, you're fine.
Yep.
So the results are real. And what we're seeing is that folks that are in our program are having, better health outcomes, meaning lower likelihood of ending up in a hospital unnecessarily, lower likelihood of ending up in an emergency room, very high satisfaction, so 88% satisfaction. And we've managed over 5,000 alerts and growing. I think I mentioned we're now live in several states. We'll have 4 live by the end of the year, and we have 50 state coverage kind of built out underneath this. a simple way to think about this, sort of from the day of the life of the caregiver, if you are responsible for, a spouse, or you have an adult child that's involved, or you have a paid aide that's involved, we all know, and I myself have been a caregiver, right? So I've had to do this for my grandmother. We know that we don't have the right level of support. We know that when something's going wrong, in my own personal case, towards the end of my grandmother's life, she was having skin condition issues. She had mild dementia, and a host of other things going on. Between myself, my mother, and her aide, we were the ones that basically had to coordinate this. And the only way we could do it was basically texting and calling with each other. It's almost impossible to get a hold of a nurse. Through our system, what we're able to do is document. So if my grandmother had been a client in my system, all of us would have known who her doctors were. All of us would have known what the treatment plan was for her, so that when something was going on, was it normal? Was it not normal? And we would have had a clinical team literally in our pocket that could help us if we weren't sure what to do. That's the interventional component around this. Moving on. So what you see here is the basic setup, which is really understanding the caregivers and the care recipients, understanding what they need on both sides. So what does a caregiver need in order to be able to be effective at helping somebody remain safe in the home? And part of this is recognizing that caregiving is hard. We can't make it easier to bathe, dress, transfer, take care of someone in that manner. What we can do is make it safer and more effective, and something that is more confidence inspiring. And we can also be the institutional memory, so that when I'm at work and my mom's taking over, and then when my mom's at work and the aide is taking over, that we're all able to share information. Making sure that the caregiver and the care recipients have the right tools in place in order to be successful. So this includes everything from understanding biometrics in the home. Many people with chronic disease are monitoring that without a ton of support, as well as being prompted for the things that somebody should be paying attention to. And then as part of that, having an integrated telehealth component, so that if there ever is something that's concerning, and this is bi-directional, so if we see something that we don't like, and one of the things I should mention is that we are linked into what's called health information exchanges. So when somebody signs up with us, we actually can bring in a full 360 view of what's going on with them. So being able to proactively outreach because we see something we don't like, or reactively respond to something that the caregiver or care recipient doesn't like, and then having clinical intelligence that protocolizes it. Far too often what happens is that you get to an on-call person who doesn't know who you are, who doesn't know who the care recipient is, and their answer is call 911, which is scary and not what we want. In our case, what's happening is that we're getting to a clinician who can help, who knows who you are, who knows who the client is, who knows what to do. And as a result, our most common intervention, right, and it's a successful intervention, over half of it is just caregiver coaching. Here's what to do next, followed by let's get someone local in to help you. Let's get in a nurse. We know who your nurse is. Let's get in a community paramedic. Let's help you get that prescription filled. Let's help you get to an urgent care center. So these are the type of things that we're able to enable. And we're really excited about organizations like the Villages, because you're a natural network to support stuff like that. So that's the overview.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Randy. I'm really glad you could participate. I knew we're going to generate a lot of questions. And again, this session is really meant to be just a whetting of your appetite. What Vesta is doing is really exciting about taking data and making it into actionable intelligence. And I think there's so many different ways for Villages to connect in with that and help be a part of what we're already doing, and potentially be a part of the reimbursement process, which Villages have never really been able to do at any kind of significant scale. So very excited about Vesta Healthcare and what it could mean to help power Villages. So thanks again, Randy. And now we're going to shift over to Dr. Scott Kaiser. If I see him on as well. Scott is a geriatrician and the Chief Innovation Officer of the Motion Picture and Television Foundation outside of LA. He's one of my favorite people I've met in the field of aging over the last 10 years. He's doing some really exciting things. And I know if you're not already familiar with what the MPTF is doing, you're going to be really excited about what they're just planning, what they're just getting going now. So with that, we're going to shift the screen over to Scott.
Great, thank you so much. Hey Joel, how are you?
Good.
So I'm gonna try and share my screen here. Let's see if I succeed. Oh wow, here we go. Let's see, slideshow from the start. Perfect. So yeah, thank you, Joel. What a pleasure to be here. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about some of the work we've been doing at MPTF to address social isolation, which has shifted quite dramatically since COVID. So again, Joel gave a little bit of an introduction to MPTF. It's a really interesting organization. I think there's just so much synergy between everything that you are about and everything you do with the villages with what we've been doing for 99 years now. We were founded by Mary Pickford, who is somebody I've really come to appreciate as a real hero. She's an incredible woman. Charlie Chaplin and Douglas Fairbanks and some other Hollywood luminaries, they came together to support this or to create this organization where people could step up to help each other in times of need. Really to create a safety net for people who work in Hollywood, which again might sound glamorous. Yes, George Clooney is on our board of directors, but mostly behind every George Clooney, there are a lot of working people, and everybody can hit hard times, particularly we're the original gig economy, a lot of freelancers. So having this safety net where people can step up and help each other in times of need. And that's right in our mission statement, which is about, supporting members of our community in living and aging well and in helping each other in times of need. So when I learned, I'm actually a geriatrician, so I see patients, my clinical focus is on dementia care. When I learned about the impact of loneliness and social isolation, which I'm sure this is all old hat to many of you, but again, this 15 cigarettes per day statistic, I sort of cannot be said enough. Julianne Holt-Lundsted's incredible research where she did a meta-analysis. She looked at all sorts of risk factors, public health risk factors, and showed that loneliness had a risk of premature mortality equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And really, I got into this when I heard a colleague speak, and she looked at a retirement data set and looked at things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, obesity, and showed again that loneliness was the biggest predictor of other health issues, biggest predictor of functional decline, and biggest predictor of mortality. And in my field, taking care of people, trying to prevent Alzheimer's and caring for people with Alzheimer's, we know that loneliness and isolation are also huge risk factors for developing dementia, for developing Alzheimer's and related dementias. So this is really important stuff. And it's still hard. As a doctor, I show up at a conference and I'm talking about loneliness. People are looking at me like I've got, 3 heads. What is he talking about? But social connection really is something that is a critical element of good health. Healthy social connections are a critical element of good health and well-being. And so that's what we've been about. We've had programs that are focused on identifying loneliness and isolation and doing something about it. And we've really been focused on that for over 6 years. But now what? So COVID comes, and as we all know, it's changed everything, particularly in the community that I care about, older people, right? I mean, so this is really, I was telling my patients to stay home, to avoid large crowds way before the CDC or states even came out with broad stay-at-home orders, right? So we've been in this, I don't need to tell you, for a long haul here, and we've got a long haul ahead. So really, loneliness was widely prevalent before, but the numbers have gone up. And I've looked at very good data looking at this. There's a great study out of the University of Michigan, and they showed a significant increase in people's feelings of loneliness, right? That feeling, that thirst, that craving for social connection, and social isolation, just that objective fact of being cut off from other people. So both have gone up. So we needed solutions. We needed to rethink the way that we were doing things. And the good news is we had a lot of experience connecting with people by phone. I'll just give you an example. We have these flyers for a program we created called the Daily Call Sheet, where we train industry members to serve as volunteers and call other industry members. Now, when we were trying to get people into this program, we didn't say, hey, who wants to sign up for a loneliness intervention, right? Raise your hand if you're lonely. You're not going to get a lot of hands coming up, and you're not going to find the people who are truly cut off. Just like in COVID, what happened is the governor of California said, hey, everybody should call, 5 older people or knock on their door to check in on them. Well, you know what, how do we reach those people who would say, I don't need you to knock on my door, or might not even have anybody to knock on their door, right? And that's obviously something you guys know about, is you've got this great network, and how do you get the right people into it and get people excited about being part of it? Well, that's what we learned. We learned how to speak to volunteers about what would motivate them, and we learned to speak to the people who we're trying to serve to understand what would work for them. For us, it was really about respecting them as members of our community and wanting to give back as people who've been a part of our entertainment industry community. So we drew on this experience, and we've actually had created toolkits. I think many of you probably from previous Village meetings might have heard from Maureen Feldman, our Director of Social Isolation Impact. And we actually created toolkits to help both agencies and the volunteers really know everything they need to know about how to do social call programs, effective social call programs. And this is, again, you've got telephone check-in on the one end of the spectrum, where it's like, okay, are you alive? Do you have food? And then you've got peer counseling, peer support, where it's therapy really on the other end. We're right in the middle. We are all about these ongoing social calls. It's very, that we think there is real value into that. We've studied it and we've perfected it to some degree. But so then when COVID hit, our phone was ringing off the hook. People are saying, oh my gosh, can we do a training? Can you train us? We need to set this up. We used to do this in person, used to do that in person. How can we reach the people by phone in a meaningful way? So we had organizations reaching out. We started offering these trainings online. We've trained I think nearly 100 agencies at this point, but we knew that they needed tools to be able to do this effectively. I'll give a simple example. We were having people just call each other by sharing phone numbers, and that's fine in certain settings, but in other settings, you need to reach out more broadly, and you don't want the people to have each other's phone number, right? So another example, being able to track what was going on, who's making the calls, to manage it. So we created something, and you can go to our website here, joincallhub.com, to learn about this platform that we've created called the Call Hub. And I don't know what's wrong with me, but we literally created this from March, April, from April till now, and we're still working on it. We've had grants from the Eisner Foundation, which is a great organization, to support this. And I looked at myself some days when we had an outbreak of COVID on our motion picture retirement campus, and we're dealing with so many things. My patients are struggling. I go, oh my gosh, why are we building this, amidst the pandemic? Well, we had to, because the need was so clear. People were so isolated. Organizations just kept telling us this is doing exactly what we need. Many organizations, a broad network of organizations, could now mobilize. All of these people who had volunteers who wanted to do something, we could now give them something to do. All the people who knew that the hardest to reach people were not getting reached, we had a solution. So people kept knocking on the door, and it just motivated me to keep building, keep building, keep building. So we ended up developing a whole software so that you can now manage your program. You can upload your whole population, and then everybody goes into a database so that now all of your callers with any simple phone, could be a smartphone, could just be an old landline phone, can call into a number that gets assigned to your organization. And then that acts as a switchboard, and then that automatically dials out to the person you're trying to reach. And they all they see on the caller ID is not Joel's number or my number, whoever's going. They just see your organization's Connect Call Hub number. So it's all through there. And then you, managing the organization, can now track exactly who's called who's not getting calls, who's getting calls all the time, who has calls that are lasting an hour, who has calls that are lasting 2 minutes. You can you have a record of every call between who, and then you can start adding on, additional services like screening programs, referral opportunities. Because what we're trying to do is we're just trying to get people engaged, right? And that's what we find happens with these social calls is you could have a great program that you're just not getting the right people into it. If you start with just a social call where Joel and I talk and we find out we love talking about the Chicago Cubs, and that's it. We just talk Cubs. And I know this happens all the time in the villages, so village to village movement. So I know I'm preaching to the choir. We're just trying to create the tools that can enable this to happen on a massive scale and to happen more efficiently and effectively. And just, I would add with one thing is that we're just getting started here. Again, we're offering this platform free. We basically give everybody the tools they need. We help them get onboarded. We use our grant funds so that you can use these tools for free. And all we ask for return is for you to challenge us in how these tools could help you solve your problems better so that we could make something even better to impact more people. Because we know, whether it's in my patients or through my work in the Motion Picture Television Fund, where we're serving hundreds of thousands of people, we know how critical these issues are. And so we're trying to make a difference. And along those lines, we had a summit on social isolation impact where all of the content is available online. And I encourage you to check it out. It was a great day with people who are really experts in understanding the impact of social isolation and highlighting things like what you all do that are the solution that we need to spread. There's even, we co-partnered with the Milken Institute Center for the Future of Aging to do this summit. So there's actually even a report that they released just last week called Together Apart, which is available at the Milken Institute for download. A great report that again highlights great solutions that you guys could be adopting. And hopefully, as we continue to work together, we should all be looking to what you're doing as the model and just think about how to do more of it and keep making it better. That's what we're here for, here to help. And I think that's that.
Scott, thanks so much. That was excellent. I mean, again, what MPTF has been doing for years to address social isolation and other things. You were addressing that issue before it was hip, if you will. And just highlighting that event that was earlier this year, excellent content around the issue of social isolation. It's absolutely in line with what the villages do best. So thanks again for participating today. With that, we are over our time. So I thank you to Barbara and the rest of the board. Just bring it up that, if we want to bring up that last slide again for a minute. Again, the idea is creating collaboration with partners like you heard today. The organizations that came forward to participate are going to be participating with us in these future sessions. You've heard from people like Meredith at Vitality Society and Jennifer from Silver Nest and other organizations along the way. There's so many people and so many organizations that want to partner with us, and that's how we can take this movement forward. So we invite you all to join us in it. I think we're going to wrap up now, and I'm going to hand it back over to Barbara. Thank you for letting us go a little bit long, And thank you for those of you who have stayed through the end of this session.
Well, thank you, Joel. Thank you, Hillary, and guests that came on. We appreciate your time and the commitment to ending our conference in a big bang. I'm going to share my screen for a second. I've pulled over all the board members that are on and our planning committee. So if you wouldn't mind taking yourself off, putting your camera on so everybody can see you. Hang on a second. Nope. Somebody's got to stop sharing. Okay.
Anything I can do to help, Barb?
I'm just trying to pull up the last slide, which it's not coming.
Oh, on the regular village to village?
Yeah, hang on. I'll pull it up. Well, that's okay. It's just a slide and it shows, let me see if I can pull it up.
This one? That one?
Yep, that, and then our planning committee.
This is all I got.
Okay, that's okay. First of all, we want to thank our sponsors. Without a doubt, have been successful. You know, this conference has been hugely successful for your financial contributions, but also the knowledge and expertise you've given us. I want to thank our planning committee. Those of you who are here, I had a long list, but everybody can see you. We met since this time last year. So it's been a long year. And I thank you all for all your dedication, all the, the thought process, the going back and, reinventing the wheel, having to do the virtual conference. It was huge. So we really do appreciate all your support and hard work. And last but not least, a couple more thank yous. One to our board of directors, a big fond thank you to Peter, Dick, Joel. Joel, you weren't on this morning. We had a big tribute to you. And Mandy, who are coming off the board. To reiterate, we are looking for new board members. So think about it. It's a good volunteer. We won't work you hard, but we will work you. A big shout out to Steve Gurney. We would not have been able to do this without Steve. You're the bomb. So thank you very much. And last but not least, he hasn't even shown his face, but you have to take yourself off camera, Travis. And so we can thank you directly. There you go. So thank you all very much. And this concludes our virtual conference. I don't know what 21 is going to hold. Kind of have a feeling we'll be doing this, but we've lived and learned. Look forward. We will have a great networking opportunity. Steve has already said we're going to try this new platform called Remo, and we'll do it during the holidays. And so everybody can jump on and jump over to tables and visit with each other, and it'll be it's a great experience. So we're gonna dip into that platform in December at some point between the holidays. And last but not least, don't forget to donate to Village Network. We do want to scale the movement. We do need your support, not only the volunteer, but financial. Jackie? No, I thought you were saying.
I just wanted to thank you. We can't leave you out.
Oh.
You actually reinvented the wheel. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Stay healthy, stay connected, stay in touch. Bye.